Welcome to a special draft edition of Buc What You Heard. You may listen to something somewhere else. You may have heard it from somebody else, but you know what? Buc What You Heard. You're going to hear it right here. Tonight, I'll be joined by my special guest, Peter Blake. As usual, one of the fan favorites. Guy knows what he's talking about, high football IQ, and you can find him locally in the Tampa Bay area on Tan Talk Radio Network. Peter, welcome to the show. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at pblake1003 or, of course, on the sports web. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. Saturday afternoons from 4 to 6 now, 2 hours on the Tan Talk Sports Network. Yep, that's right. We changed it because you know why? The sports web is on Saturday afternoons. It's a fan show. There was an overwhelming response for the year anniversary show, so I had to give the people what they wanted, and that was 2 hours. So I'm Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
Not 1 hour, but 2 hours. And folks, if you get a chance to check out the podcast from the show last week, great show, a lot of great points. And the one thing that I really appreciate about the show, everybody got a chance to talk. Everybody got a chance to speak their mind. Nonsense or no nonsense. So great show. And Pete, I'm glad to have you on. You know what this is. You know where you were last year this time when we were talking about the draft and we weren't sure who we were going to get. We kind of knew, but we didn't know. It was just a matter of hearing it announced the next day. So, I'm excited. This time of the year, this general manager who's worked wonders with the draft, he's been able to find value in the lower rounds. So Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans, please don't just watch the first round, watch all of it, because you never know if that guy that you're seeing is going to be a starter. So Pete, I know you're excited. I know you want to get this all started. Before we do start with the draft, I do want to mention that the Bucs had camp and they ran through some drills and you got a chance to see a svelte Jameis Winston. And
18 pounds off. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, this makes me so happy because this guy is dedicated to football, not just during the season, but all year long. It's his mission to get better. And that, Bucs fans, you should be happy about right there. Pete, let me get your thoughts on that.
No, it's nice for him to take that next step and progressively get his body into better shape than it was last year. He kind of knows what to expect now in his second year. It seems like him and Mike Evans are going to develop this chemistry together, which is good to see. On top of that, I think, watching, you said this off the air, having Werner and having Grimes as your starting corners, I think is very telling because they did hire the defensive backs coach that worked with Werner in Tennessee. I do not think they draft a corner. And another point I get out of this camp and was a little bit disappointing is we won't see the two starting guards, Sweezy or Ali Marpet, until the beginning of training camp. So that's something to be a little bit concerned about. Some other guys are going to get an opportunity to work in camp. But overall, you have to be excited, guys, because it's football season and officially starts tomorrow night for the NFL draft from Chicago.
And with the number 9 pick in the NFL draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers choose.
Well, they choose Joey Bosa. I've said this a month ago. I believe Bosa is going to be there. I believe he's the best defensive end in this draft. I think the analysts are really over-analyzing this. He runs a 4.8 in the 40. It's not flashy. He doesn't have flashy moves. He doesn't have the athleticism as you would associate with a Von Miller. But what he is a Jared Allen type of player. You can get after the quarterback. He has a high motor. His sacks went down last year. I think that was more the fact of the players around him weren't as good. I think maybe he was trying to not get an injury like a Jadeveon Clowney. But it's interesting to note, with his sacks going down, his pressures went up. So to say that this guy is going to be a bust is ridiculous. Of course, there are some drug issues with the kid, but I think that was early on in his career. He's a son of a football player who was a first-round pick for the Miami Dolphins, I believe, in the 80s. So overall, I think you're getting a great player that can come in here, solidify that defensive line, give them an edge pass rusher to pair with Gerald McCoy and Robert Ayers and everybody else, give them a good rotation. And now I'm getting kind of excited if they can get Bosa, and I believe they will at number 9 tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I thought this was an interesting segue because we are talking about the draft. So without further ado, I really want to get your draft picks, and I want to see how we get to the point that Joey Bosa is available at number 9. So I'm going to lead this in with you and have you go through your picks, and we'll look at how this progresses down to Joey Bosa at number 9. So take it away.
Well, you start out with the LA Rams here. They made the big trade to get up there. I think they're going to not let history repeat itself. And what I mean by that is in 2004, the San Francisco 49ers had the number 1 pick. Instead of taking the local kid and being Aaron Rodgers, who was ready to play in the NFL, you took the high potential guy in Alex Smith. I think the LA Rams don't make that mistake again. They take Jared Goff out of California. He's clearly ready. He's more of a guy that's ready to come in right away and play in the NFL. At number 2, I think the Philadelphia Eagles take Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State. He's got the potential. He's got everything you look for. He's 6'5", 6'6", can throw the ball over the place. The problem is he's a developmental project. But the thing is about the Philadelphia Eagles, they got 2 quarterbacks there in Sam Bradford and Chase Daniel. I think that situation is good. Make no mistake about it, Doug Peterson is the coach there. He believes that Wentz is the franchise quarterback for them, and I believe that's going to be the pick tomorrow night. At number 3, you got the San Diego Chargers. Now, I go back and forth on this because the Chargers lose Eric Weddle on free agency. It would be easy to take possibly the best defensive player, maybe the best player in the draft, and Jalen Ramsey from Florida State. But I always go by this little moniker. Let's protect our quarterback. That would be Phillip Rivers. He got hit quite a bit last year. You have King Dunlap. You have Barksdale on the right side. I don't think that's getting it done. That's why I think they take Laramie Tunsil out of Ole Miss. At number 4, the Dallas Cowboys shocked the draft. I made no secret about this. I believe Jerry Jones, in his grand scheme of things, believes that Tony Romo is the franchise quarterback for this team. Well, in order to keep Tony Romo healthy, you have to get him a running back to take the pressure off of him. That's why I think they go Ohio State's Ezekiel Elliott, because I believe that Elliott can get behind that offensive line of the Dallas Cowboys and make them a playoff contender. It's possible. Now they can address the defensive end position in the later rounds because there's a plethora of players there. At number 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars take a local favorite in Jalen Ramsey at safety. They improve that front side of their defense with additions and free agency. Now I think they focus on the backside of it. It makes sense, guys. They're in Jacksonville. Florida State's Jalen Ramsey. You get your fan base out there, get them excited. At number 6, the Baltimore Ravens take another offensive tackle on Ronnie Stanley out of Notre Dame. Now, some people say Joey Bosa, and you can make a case for that because Terrell Suggs was hurt last year. But for me, I think it's an offensive lineman because, once again, going back to that old moniker, let's protect our quarterback. You just signed Joe Flacco to an extension deal. So you take Ronnie Stanley, who some scouts believe could be better than Tunsil. At number 7, you got the San Francisco 49ers. And even though you want a quarterback, you're not going to reach for one with Paxton Lynch. So that's why I believe they go with DeForest Buckner. 2 + 2 = 4. You have Chip Kelly there from Oregon. DeForest Buckner can play defensive tackle in their 3-4 defense. You put him next to his teammate who was there in Armstead. I think it's a good pick. At number 8, you got the Cleveland Browns. I think they take Myles Jack because there are a lot of injury concerns. Maybe the Browns trade out of this, but if they stay at 8, I like them to take Myles Jack. At number 9, of course, Joey Bosa to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it happens. I think if you started this process, ladies and gentlemen, in January and February, and you told this fan base and everybody else that you would end up with possibly the best defensive end in the draft, I think people would have told you that you were crazy. And at number 10, the New York Giants select Leonard Floyd out of Georgia. Guy's a freak. I'm not sure about what you're going to do with him. You can rush him from a linebacking spot. You can rush him on the edge. It's going to be interesting. I think he's got to put on a little bit of weight, but he is a freakish talent from Georgia. He can play the run. He can play the pass. I think he's got to, again, put on some weight, but it just goes into what the Giants have done overall in this free agency process. They have built their defense up. I think they continue to do that with Leonard Floyd from Georgia. That's my NFL mock draft for 2016. Back to you.
All right. Man, you can't argue with the logic on a lot of the moves that you're talking about. To me, Jerry Jones is the wild card in all of this. I mean, he's the only person that doesn't think, I don't want to say logically, just some of the moves that he's made throughout the draft. He's very reminiscent of a Mark Dominic kind of general manager.
I think he's Al Davis more like anything else. You could actually say he's an Al Davis because Al Davis liked a particular player and he favored him, and it didn't matter what he needed. He always took the best player on the board, and sometimes it didn't work out for Al Davis. Mark Dominic, for all his failures with premium picks, I think he was trying to have a defensive line. I think he was trying to have defensive end and defensive tackles. It didn't work out. They weren't the right players. But you're exactly right. The Dallas Cowboys, to me, are the biggest wild card in this draft because then the dominoes start to fall. Then there's a Jalen Ramsey that may get out to 5, which I believe he does. And if you talked about this process early, you would have not said that Jalen Ramsey would be there at number 4. So if he's there at number 4, the decision falls on Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. And just remember now, all right, Jerry Jones wanted Johnny Manziel. His son, Stephen Jones, told him to take Zach Martin. It worked out in the end. This time, I think Jerry Jones outrules his son and the front office, and he believes, and to a certain degree, Ezekiel Elliott can take the pressure off of Tony Romo. You look at the Dallas Cowboys a couple years ago. How good were they, Gene, with DeMarco Murray? How much did they take the pressure off of Tony Romo? Now you put him behind that offensive line and you look at Elliott's attributes. He can catch, he can block, he's explosive, he's got great vision. Hey, I agree with the pick. Now, in saying that, defensive end is definitely a possibility. They could take Joey Bosa. They could take DeForest Buckner because what do we know? Ron Marinelli's there as a defensive coordinator, and he's just licking his chops to get a defensive end to add to the line. With you already losing Greg Hardy, letting him go in free agency, to Randy Gregory being suspended for 4 games, to DeMarcus Lawrence being suspended for 4 games. But in the end, I believe the Dallas Cowboys will draft Ezekiel Elliott.
I hear you right there, man. But to your point, the latter points that you made on that defense, there are so many holes in that defense that they still haven't filled. They haven't filled since Ware was playing in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. I really believe you have to focus on the defense. They're in a similar, I would say maybe a worse position than Tampa. And, I think that Dallas's offense has carried them throughout a lot of the games that they've had because I've seen games where the secondary let them down. Tony Romo walks off the field with a lead and secondary lets him down. So I really don't care either way. I hate Dallas. So Dallas and, Carolina, Atlanta, they're all the same to me. I don't really care. So, this is a Buc show. It's all about the Bucs. Buc What You Heard. So, I'm once again, I'm excited about the draft. I would love to have Joey Bosa. Now, let me ask you this, because I know you have a plan A. I know you have a plan B. I know you have a plan C. So, with that being said, let's say that the evil genius Jerry Jones decides, hey, I want Joey Bosa at number 4. What does the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do? How does this change the draft going from 4 down to 9?
Well, it depends. It depends on what offensive tackle could be on the board because, again, I think you guys talked about it last night with the Tennessee Titans. Let's say there is a Ronnie Stanley on the board. I do not for 1 minute believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to take an offensive lineman. They're fat in that department. You got Kevin Panfill, you got DeMar Dotson, you've got Gosler Chairless. So you got plenty of depth on that line. And even though Ronnie Stanley is a talented offensive lineman, you're not going to play him at left tackle because you got Donovan Smith. You're going to draft a right tackle at number 9? I don't think so. So I think you give the call to the Tennessee Titans and talk about possibly trading down. If that doesn't work out and they don't call you and there's not an offensive lineman on the board, then I would seriously consider taking a Sheldon Rankins out of Louisville. Because if you think about it, and I think Jason Light had some comments that he watched Super Bowl 50 where he thought the defensive tackles did a lot more for Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware as and you look at the Carolina Panthers, the way they built their team with K'Wan Short and Star Lotulelei, that would make sense also. So maybe you possibly take a Sheldon Rankins. Maybe you go with Vernon Hargreaves. For my plan is, if all those guys are not on the board, and I think there's going to be one player, how about you call the New York Jets? Okay, they need a quarterback. We have one in Mike Glennon, and I know what you're saying. Is he a great quarterback? I don't think so, but the New York Jets like him. Okay, and you suckered the Jets in before with the trade for Darrelle Revis. Say whatever you want to about Darrelle Revis. That was a good trade at the time, in my opinion. I think they could have got more out of him, but you still suckered him into that trade. So let's just say you trade Mike Glennon to the New York Jets and you get Muhammad Wilkerson. Well, you just basically kill two birds with one stone. What you do is you trade the 9 pick to the New York Jets. You get the 20 pick. You take the best pass rusher, maybe a Noah Spence, maybe a Shaq Lawson if he's there, because there's a lot of going back and forth. I know a Clemson defensive end, it's hard to imagine, but it's possible. All right, maybe
let me at this point, I'm going to cut you off. Let me just stop right here.
Sure.
Players are players. I don't care what school it is. And, I've heard the comment, oh, we don't want another Clemson player. You know what? This may be different. Jason Licht has been able to assess. He is a talent evaluator. He's not Mark Dominic. Okay.
Right.
Let's keep that in mind. He's not Bruce Allen. So he's a general manager in his own right, and he is a talent evaluator. Can we not agree, based on the last 2 years of the draft, that Jason Licht has not done a great job, if not a good job, a great job, compared to what we've been faced with over the past decade?
No, I agree. I mean, anytime you get 2 offensive linemen as premium picks, they come in right away and start. That's very good. You got Jameis Winston, of course, 3rd rookie in NFL history to throw for 4,000 yards. That seemed like an easy pick, but you never know. You mess up on it, but he got the pick right. You look at Quan Alexander, a 4th-round pick. You really didn't expect that much. Mike Evans, I think he's going to be a beast of a receiver. Let me take this time out, though, because I know we're going to talk about this. I was not a Mike Evans fan, but after watching that E60 story last night on Mike Evans, I have nothing but profound respect for Mr. Evans. And I think that this year, getting that chemistry together with Jameis Winston, he's going to turn out to be a very, very scary nightmare for NFL defenses, because this kid's got it all. He just got to put it together, be more consistent with his hands, get better at route running. But I think he's that story last night really made me think that we definitely did the right thing by drafting Mike Evans with the 7th overall pick. So you look at these drafts, Kevin Pamphile, another player that's been productive for the Bucs, even at a backup position. He came in last year, played well at the left guard spot. I think Jason Licht has done a very good job. The work still is cut out for him. He's got to get players in this draft. They put a premium on it. Even though they went after Robert Ayers and Brent Grimes in free agency, you're still going to have to address those holes defensively, especially. So I'd expect a defensive-heavy draft. And saying that, I have faith in Jason Licht that he can get this done. I have faith that he'll get the right players in the draft to come in right away and start. And I don't necessarily believe what Dirk Cutter said, that we won't have 2 or 3 starters. 3 starters would be unbelievable. I think they're going to have a little bit more than that. But you know what? They position themselves in free agency to not necessarily just have to depend on draft picks. That's the key. That was the failure of Mark Dominic, okay? Mark Dominic went into the process and saying, you know what, Daquan Bowers and Adrian Claiborne can come in right away and start. Brian Price can come in right away and start. There was never any veteran presence. There was never any fear of, I have to earn this job. In this case, you have a nice mix of veterans and rookies. So that's why I think it's different. And that's why I think Jason Licht has the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the right direction.
Absolutely, man. You said it all right there. I look at what Jason Licht did. He basically alleviated the pressure on him to focus on, this is the best player on the board. This guy is going to help us long term. He's not just going to be a flash in the pan player. And the one thing I mentioned last night with the guys on Real Bucs Talk is Jason Licht is drafting guys who have it from the neck up.
Correct.
It's not the physical tools. The physical tools are important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not denying that in any way, but you have to have it from here up. This is the most important part. Being a gym rat, being that guy that wants to get better. You listen to the reports about Quan Alexander, and just the fact that when he was suspended, how bad that affected him. I think he was the most remorseful person of anybody, whether you're talking about fans or players. And I guarantee you, he's coming back with a vengeance. And I want to take this time to admit that I was wrong. I was looking at Kenny Bill as my breakout player, whereas we saw Quan Alexander, and I did not mention him on any of my podcasts really up until I would say mid-season or maybe a little bit before mid-season. But he wasn't somebody that was on my radar. What he's been able to do, it really shows that Jason Licht is that guy that he's a good talent evaluator. And I know I've mentioned that, and you will hear me continue to mention that in podcasts in the future. But this guy, I think he's really shown that he has the ability to build the foundation, which he's doing, and putting pieces in place. And this season's really going to show whether he's got it or he doesn't have it. Did I lose you? Maybe I lost him. Okay, it looks like I kind of lost Peter here, but with all that being said, just looking at the draft, I know that Pete really likes Joey Bosa. I like the fact that there are teams that are trading up and giving up picks, and I would not have a problem if the Bucs traded down and possibly got a defensive player. And here's a scenario that we really haven't talked about too much is the possibility of maybe a wide receiver. I've seen reports. I've seen um, different names thrown around at wide receiver. And what you have to look at, let's go back to 2015. Vincent Jackson went down. He came back. He went down again. Lewis Murphy went down. And you look at the fall off from a Mike Evans to a Vincent Jackson, and everybody below that was kind of a fall off as far as talent goes. So I know that we talked about this last night. I know that Jason Licht is looking at that. He's looking at everything as the general manager, pieces that will fit in place. And as a Bucs fan, I would not be surprised if he found another offensive weapon along the way. I would, I know that defense is something that we are really focused on here, but keep in mind, there wasn't a high turnover with the defensive players when it came to the new defensive coordinator coming in. There wasn't a whole lot of turnover. So that tells me that this organization is very comfortable with the defensive players that Tampa has now. But it's always good to be able to fill those players in. But just kind of going back to what I was saying, needing a wide receiver, Tampa has to be looking long term and saying, hey, eventually Vincent Jackson's going to ride off into the sunset. We don't know how much more he has in the tank. It is important if there is a wide receiver to at least give that consideration. So that's always a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised in this draft if you didn't see a wide receiver pick somewhere along the way.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's a possibility. We're having some technical difficulties right now. As you can see, you can't see my face, so sorry about that.
I got you.
I don't know what
I see you.
I don't know what happened, but you're exactly right. There could be a wide receiver in this later rounds. Maybe a Braxton Miller out of Ohio State. Former quarterback's got all the abilities, got speed, he's got quickness, made a lot of plays. He's a raw prospect. Maybe a Will Fuller. Consistently, he's got to get better with his hands. But overall, speed-wise, I believe he's a 4.32. Hey, that's good. I like that. Josh Doxson out of TCU would be another player. So there are definitely players out there. You don't have to necessarily go for a Laquan Treadwell or Corey Coleman. And to tell you the truth, I don't really believe that those players are first-round players. I think they're mid-first round to late second round. Okay, I don't think they're first-round picks. I don't think they're top 10. I don't think they're Calvin Johnson type players. I don't think Calvin Johnson, of course, is a once in a lifetime player. But do I think they're Odell Beckham? I don't think so. But we'll see what happens. Treadwell's got to get consistent. He's got to get consistently better route running, and he's got to catch the ball more. His speed, I don't know, 4.6. That's not going to blow the top off a defense. But when Odell Beckham and Landry, Jarvis Landry, came out, they weren't fast either. They developed into good wide receivers, and they had the it factor to have the body to get open. So that's what it comes down to. It's not necessarily just all speed.
And you make a very valid point here. I personally, and I may get persecuted for saying this, I think the 40 time is overrated. I think you really don't reach your speed until the 60. And that's my personal opinion on it. But when I see a 40 time, I'm like, okay, I can use that in my description of a player. But to me, it really doesn't matter, because Jameis Winston, the guy who everybody crucified him last time this year because of his 40 time, you saw the plays that he made with his legs. You would expect to hear about this from Marcus Mariota, but no, you have Jameis Winston, the slow quarterback with the slow 40 speed, who is out there making plays with his legs. So to me, yeah, I get the 40 speed. I understand it. But as far as the grand scheme of how you're picking a player with game film, pro day, combine, I would lean more towards the game film than I would towards the combine or the 40 speed or the pro day.
Yeah, you make a valid point. And again, it's about the film. It's about the tape. It's about what they do. It's about the type of routes that they run. And it's not always about speed. It's also about body control. For me, it's about consistent hands. You talk about Mike Evans being one of the top receivers in the league. I think he left a lot. I think he left a lot of yards on the field last year. Could have had a lot of big plays. And Dirk Cutter coming into the year wants to have more big plays. So Mike Evans is going to have to get better with his hands, and I think he will. I think concentration will be better this year, and he's going to have another year in this offense. So it's definitely going to be interesting, but you bring up another good point. There are receivers in this draft. They may not be the names that you think. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be bust. They may be developmental guys, but you need basically at this point, you have to upgrade that position because Vincent Jackson is hurt. Louis Murphy is hurt. So I would expect the Buccaneers to address that position, and I would hope that they would address the kicking position in the later rounds. I think Aguayo is a weapon in himself. I really do. So
yeah. And the one thing that we can both agree on here is Jason Light has been very good about getting value in the later rounds. And to me, that's what I'm really excited about. And that's kind of why I'm telling Bucs fans, please, if you get a chance, watch the whole draft. Don't watch the first round. Look and see who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get. And let's see if those players can't possibly blossom into something a little bit more than just a fourth-round player or a fifth-round player, or sixth-round player. But they can be contributors. Just keep in mind that they can possibly be contributors to this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team.
Here we go. All right, so yeah, I'm trying to get this situation together. So stand by. All right.
Oh no problem at all.
All right.
So I've been we've been kind of working towards the draft. I know for me personally, I just started getting to where I'm really excited about the draft. I'm looking forward to, the draft itself. Last year took a lot out of me because I was on board with Jameis Winston after Peter Blake, who's on the show tonight. He was one of the first people back in November, and his words were, Tampa is going to draft Jameis Winston. Mark my words. And those were his words. And, I was like, yeah, whatever. It's not even, we're nowhere close to the draft. But those were his words. Hey, that's what's going to happen. And, as we got closer and I got to see Jameis Winston, and I think what really sold me was the game that everybody's critical of. The game against Oregon, the game against Marcus Mariota, and not just when you're looking at the team, Florida State, there were a lot of mistakes, there were a lot of miscues, that kind of thing. But watching Jameis Winston in this game against the Oregon Ducks, and just seeing what he did as a football player, the football throws that he was making, the plays that he was making, you can go all the way back, and I was like, wow, maybe Peter is right. Maybe this is a guy that would fit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And sure enough, the more film you watch, the more see the poise that he had, to see him on the chalkboard with a former Super Bowl winning head coach, calling plays, memorizing plays, and seeing what he did and what he was capable of doing. It really, it changed. It was a game changer right there. So fast forward to the draft day. We draft Jameis Winston, and as we move forward throughout the season, there were still these critics. And all the way up to the Pro Bowl, nobody, and I mean nobody, expected Jameis Winston, this kid who had all these off-the-field issues, who was a bad character person, to end up being the leader of this offense, being the leader of this team, and leading this team to a 6-win season and going to the Pro Bowl and performing in the Pro Bowl. Nobody expected that. So, once again, my hat's off to Jason Light. This should make you excited about the draft. I go back to that because nobody expected it. But this year, we have different needs. There are players out there that could be special players, and we're going to look and see what Jason Light has in his bag of tricks for this draft. I am excited about it. I would love to be sitting in the war room with a bag of popcorn and a beer and just listening to these guys talk about who's available. So,
you should be here for my draft party in Clearwater, but you're not here. And I tell you what, if you want to bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. Do it on Saturday afternoon on the Tan Talk Sports Network, of course, WTAN 1340 AM, tantalk1340.com. Saturday afternoon from 4 to 6, we'll be hitting the draft hard and heavy. Have Mr. ESPN himself on, Rick Brown, on the Sports Web, a fan show. And the difference between the Sports Web and every other sports talk show is that we treat the fan like they're a superstar. We don't cut you off. We don't hang up on you, of course, unless you spew some nonsense. But we actually give you your own walk-up music. I mean, what sports talk show does that? What sports talk show gives you the opportunity to call the show twice? There's not one. And that's the difference between the Sports Web, the most entertaining sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area. I'm Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
All right. And Peter, before we go, I want to get your yellow flag. I've got a double penalty personally, but I want to talk to you. I want to see who are you throwing the flag on? Who's getting that personal foul?
Who's getting the personal foul this week? Let's see. I would have to say Tom Brady, because you know what? What you could have did is you could have went to the NFL. You most likely could have got a 2-game suspension. You decided to fight the law, and this time the law is going to win. You're going to be suspended for 4 games. I salute the NFL for going after a guy that, by the way, all the people say that supposedly he's innocent, yet if a guy's innocent, what's the need to smash your cell phone?
There you go.
Good for the NFL. You fight the law, and now the law is going to win. Yellow flag on Tom Brady of the New England Patriots.
You know what? That was one of my guys right there. You know what? I'm going to confirm that penalty, and he's getting it. Personal foul on that one.
Personal foul, baby.
My guy, Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford, shut the hell up forever. For real. You haven't done anything in Philadelphia. You didn't do anything for the Rams. The Rams would not have gotten rid of you if you weren't so fragile. Broke his toe tripping over a squirrel. He's horrible about that, man. You know what? I heard Tampa General was in trade talks for Sam Bradford. That's just how frail this guy is. Sam Bradford, you haven't done anything to dictate a trade. Shut up and play. If you cannot beat out a first-round rookie. You can't beat him out for that position. You don't deserve to be in the NFL. If you're running from competition, you don't deserve to be in the NFL. Shut the hell up and play. That's what I got to say about it.
I like it. First down.
So any parting thoughts? Any special draft picks, dark horse players, any value picks that you see throughout the draft, rounds 1 through 7, that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could actually grab up and actually get value for?
Yeah, again, I would go back to Braxton Miller, maybe the 3rd round, a wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's worked hard. He's played multiple positions at quarterback, as wide receiver. He's very raw. He can come in, I believe, work in this Dirk Cutter offense. He could take the top off the defense. I like him. And once again, I'm a Florida State homer. How about Robert Aguayo as a 4th or 5th round pick to be your kicker? Let's stop the insanity here. Let's go out and get a kicker and not lose a couple games last year like we did with, I don't know what his name is. I forgot. But, too many missed field goals.
Buffalo or something? Yeah, I know who you
I don't know. Brenza. Kyle Brenza. Yeah, Kyle Brenza. Yeah. Let's not go into that situation again. So let's go out and get Aguayo, and because he can be used as a weapon. And Bucs history, ask Martin Gramatica how much of a weapon he was for the Buccaneers. So I'm all in favor of going for Robert Aguayo in the 4th or 5th round if you can get him.
All right. And you kind of stole my thunder right there, because that was a guy that a dark horse guy that I was looking at. You never know. I think you could even, and this was mentioned last night on the show by the guys from Real Bucs Talk. By the way, if you guys get a chance, along with Tan Talk Radio, Real Bucs Talk, they put out some really good blogs. They put out some really interesting information, and I'm real happy with what those guys are doing. Pete, I sent you an article on Facebook. I know you were able to look at it, and you had some pretty positive comments about those guys over there too. I personally believe
that great job. Yeah. They do a great job. They know what they're doing. They definitely do their research. There's different possibilities. We're not always going to agree with the things that we talk about, but I think we're on the same. We're in the same book. We're just on the wrong page. But I think those guys bring up some valid points, and I definitely think you should take a look at it, because it's always good to see a different point of view.
Right. And they're the little guys. You have the usual suspects out there. You could go to 620, or you can get online, and there are some different places. But please, everybody, if you get a chance, check those guys out. I love them. I support them. And for me, I don't know, man. I'm just excited for the draft. I cannot wait. I think that this draft, you're going to see some special players. I'm personally on over and under. I'm picking at least minimum 2 starters this season from this draft that will help this Buccaneers team get better. And you know what? As I've told people, I get sick of people talking about the schedule. I mentioned this last night. I'm going to mention it again. Do not pay attention to the schedule, because these are not the same teams that you saw the year before, okay? You don't have a Peyton Manning. You don't have a Marshawn Lynch. There are just different players that have moved on. Some teams may have built up better. Other teams may have lost some players. But Tampa Bay has the talent, I believe, if you get these guys playing mistake-free football, playing within their scheme, I think that Tampa can win some games that other people aren't looking at them being able to win.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. And I was one of those people that said last year they could win 10 games. I really, truly believe they could. And they could have. This year, right. This year, it may be 10 wins again. We'll see what happens. But you have to feel good being a Bucs fan to know that you have one of the most important positions in the NFL addressed in Jameis Winston. You have to feel good that this team is going to be, in my opinion, more disciplined, because you don't have Lovie Smith. You don't have his son coaching the secondary. You have Mike Smith, who's traditionally, and statistics show, overall, I think you have to be excited about, again, the direction of this team and where they're going. And again, it starts tomorrow night, 8 o'clock in Chicago, the NFL draft, Christmas for the football fans.
That's right. And Bucs fans, thank you for checking out the show. Thank you, Peter Blake, for being on. Folks, If you hear anything, just think about it. If you don't know for sure, Buc What You Heard, check me out on YouTube. Check me out. Give me some likes. Leave some comments. Everybody have a good evening. Thanks, Peter, and we're out.
And and remember, if you want to check out the Sports Web, the most entertaining sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area, Saturday afternoon for 2 hours, not 1 hour, 2 hours from 4 to 6 on the Tan Talk Sports Network, WTAN 1340 AM. If you're listening online, tantalk1340.com, and I'll give you the numbers, 441-3000, 727 area code, or 1-866-826-1340. Again, I'll be joined by Sean the Sports Don. Hopefully he's not spewing any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
That's it. We're out tonight.